energy bills are rising at a historic rate, and there's no end in sight. Talk to enough people and you'll soon realize nearly everyone's shocked at their recent electricity bills. Some studies reveal energy costs have skyrocketed by as high as 60% in as little as 2 years. That's why tens of thousands are installing this magical little device from SavePowerBills.com to help slash their energy bills. This sophisticated gadget stabilizes electrical currents, reduces dirty electricity, and helps protect your appliances and electronics. Simply plug it into your home's wall outlet to help lower energy consumption and ultimately help reduce your power bills every month. Countless 5-star reviews back up the notion that this device is one of the most efficient ways to save money while beating the greedy power companies. But there's more. If you order now, you'll also receive 65% off, fast shipping within the USA, hassle-free returns, and last but not least, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee. Just go to SavePowerBills.com to take advantage of this limited time deal before they sell out. Once again, that's SavePowerBills.com.
Any concern for you that this is a political liability for you heading into an election?
Energy costs?
Yeah.
Oh, my job is not to do that calculus.
It is my view that the governor and her staff are realizing that the overall cost of these programs is exorbitant. It's quite high.
There has been an election year delay for the Clean Heat Standard, a regulatory mandate designed to force consumers away from traditional home heating fuels and into electrification as part of the state's net zero by 2050 agenda.
So that right there was Governor Maura Healey, the current governor in the state of Massachusetts, talking about how she doesn't really think about political considerations when it comes to energy policy in her state. And the reason she doesn't do that is because it's not actually her job to make those calculations. And of course, she says this just prior to her deciding to put a delay on a standard that she is to implement before the election in 2026 that she has now pushed back to 2028 in order to, again, avoid the backlash from the everyday residents of the state of Massachusetts. But make no mistake about it, if you are in New England and well aware of the fact that winter gets cold in New England, and you happen to unfortunately live in Massachusetts, of all the territories of New England, you will be faced with soaring heating bills if Maura Healey is reelected, because the changes to the heat pump systems are mandated by law, and her delay is nothing more than an election tactic in order to make sure you guys don't notice what you're actually going to be paying. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because Governor Healey of Massachusetts has essentially put a tax on heating your home in the winter. She doesn't want you to know that that's exactly what she's doing, and she's hoping that you re-elect her, thus validating her agenda, even though, again, a premise of her re-election is you not actually feeling the full impact of said agenda. So this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
In simple terms, a clean heat standard would require all fossil fuel providers to either install electric heat pumps or another clean technology, which is the only one they're entertaining, is liquid biofuel. The other piece of a clean heat standard, very important, if you are not able to do either one of those, heat pumps or liquid biofuel, you'll have to pay the state what's called an alternative compliance payment. It's essentially a tax.
Originally scheduled to begin in 2026, the new energy tax in the Clean Heat Standard would raise heating costs, first on households using natural gas, oil, or propane, and would eventually be applied to electric heating.
It will be high, and that will impact the price of those fuels.
So the way that this was described right there by this organization is absolutely perfect. What this is a tax on regular ordinary residents, and it's a tax on their heating bills, which of course impacts them during the devastatingly cold New England winters that Massachusetts residents experience each and every year. However, it is a hidden tax, or it's at least meant to be a hidden tax, as it hits you on both ends. So obviously, if you switch over to this supposedly more efficient electric heating pump under the promise that you're going to get a tax credit for doing so, you are going to pay the tax in the form of higher electric bills, which of course was something that caught a lot of residents by surprise when they ended up thinking the tax credit would benefit them, and then they made the switch. However, if you don't actually do the switch, if you keep your oil or gas or other form of heating in your home, you're happy with it because your electric bills are considered to be relatively low, especially in the winter, well, guess what? you're going to get screwed over again, because this actually requires the power companies to charge you more money for the delivery of your gas or of your oil in order to compensate for the people who do switch over to those pumps. So yes, you as a Massachusetts resident will be paying for this one way or another. And again, don't take my word for it, and don't take my word for it this close to the 2026 gubernatorial election. There was actually a segment that was done by the local ABC affiliate out in Massachusetts in May of 2025 that reviewed the past winter's electric and heating bills, and what they ultimately ended up discovering was that the promise of lower electric bills because you're switching to a more efficient electric heat was absolutely false, ridiculous, not true, and again, was devastating to those who made the switch, thinking the tax credit would compensate for it. Let me just play you some of that so you could hear what people's actual experience was.
All right, so for months now, I've shown you how gas heating bills exploded this winter, thanks mostly to sky-high delivery fees. A big part of those delivery charges go toward getting people to switch to electric heat. But some who already made that switch are fired up too. They say electric heat so far is shockingly expensive, and the state has to do more.
Now, of course, the premise of this local ABC affiliate news segment is that the state has to do more. That's what everyday residents in Massachusetts are saying. However, this premise is fundamentally flawed for a number of reasons. First and foremost, you would not be in this position but for the state acting in the way that they did. And again, as outlined by the local ABC affiliate, the reason it's more expensive on the gas side is because of taxes that were raised to cover the cost of these electric heating pumps on the electric side. So essentially what you're experiencing as a resident in the state of Massachusetts is a tax that is masquerading as a non-tax that is raising the cost of your ability to heat your home throughout the course of the winter. It is very understandable, with affordability being a hot button issue, why Governor Healey would sneakily delay this tax or delay further implementation of this tax to 2028. But make no mistake about it, she is legally obligated based on previous legislation to enforce this at some point in time against your average everyday residents, and you're likely to see even bigger electric and heating bills after 2028 because the deadline for them to meet this arbitrary global warming goal is 2030.
Laura and Joe Stevens couldn't believe their electric bills this winter. It was the first season after they scrapped their old gas furnace for this new electric heat pump that's supposed to be highly efficient. They say it's certainly efficient at burning through their money.
Do you regret making that switch?
Absolutely. I thoroughly regret it.
Enticed by a rebate from Mass Save and facing an aging gas furnace, Laura and Joe thought they were going green and would save some green. With the solar panels on the roof of their Stoughton home, they hardly used to pay an electric bill, owing National Grid less than $800 total for all of last winter. But after they installed the electric heat pump, a single month bill this December surged to $853.
So as you can see right there, in New England, the winter is considered half the year. It's November through March, and their grand total for electricity and heating throughout that period of time was under $800. So they had affordable power. However, what ultimately ended up happening was as soon as they made this switch to, again, what was promised to be a much more efficient electric heating system, they started paying more than their total winter bill per month as a regular ordinary thing, over $800 in order to heat their home with, again, something that was promised to them to be more efficient, something that is based on electricity that, by the way, is supposed to also dip power from their own solar panels. But guess what? It turns out that those rumors about efficiency, absolutely false. Essentially, they got scammed with a tax credit that covered installation, and now they're paying again on the back end in order to heat their home. And as you can see, these are two elderly individuals who now cannot heat their home properly during the winter, or if they do heat it properly, they're going to face extraordinary bills as a consequence.
The bills just seem to have kept.
Energy bills are rising at a historic rate, and there's no end in sight. That's why tens of thousands are using this amazing little device from SavePowerBills.com. It's a small but smart gadget that stabilizes electrical currents, reduces dirty electricity, and helps protect your electronics. Just plug it into your home's wall outlet to help lower energy consumption and ultimately help reduce your power bills every month. Order now to get 65% off plus many free bonuses before they sell out by going to SavePowerBills.com. That's SavePowerBills.com. Order now.
Climbing and climbing.
In Billerica, Paul Nuccio says his new electric heat pump, which was installed last August, heats his house more evenly than his old oil system, but says the cost of that heat doubled this winter.
I don't regret it in terms of how the system works. I do regret it in terms of the cost.
So this guy had a very similar experience to the couple that we showed previously. However, he did give the caveat that he actually likes the way the electric heat pump works better, as he thinks it more evenly heats his home. But the fact is, his bill ended up doubling, despite the fact that he was promised lower costs and a more efficient system than his previous oil system. But what's more fascinating than this is that not only did his bill actually double, but as a way to basically keep his bill down, but also keep his home warm, he decided to add in a much older style of heating, much more inefficient in terms of global warming than, actually burning oil in your home. And that was, of course, to have 2 wood-burning fireplaces going during the winter to keep him warm.
His January bill, for instance, surged from $443 last year to $709 this year, and he supplements his electric heat with 2 wood-burning stoves.
What do you think your bill would have been had you not had the wood stove?
My guess is it would have hit $1,000.
I swear global warming types are the dumbest people in human history. Their obsession with solar and wind, their opposition to nuclear power, and now this program that, of course, is going to raise the cost of electricity for everyday residents of Massachusetts. In fact, it's already doing so. That has to be supplemented in certain households with a wood-burning fireplace that, again, would completely offset all the supposed carbon gains that you're supposed to get by switching over to the thing in the first place. Like, we're going backwards in terms of technology while we're being promised the future, and this obviously is a reason why Governor Healey is feeling a lot of pressure to kind of delay these costs, put them off to the future, so hopefully she could secure her election victory, and then she could really turn the screws to the same people that ended up voting for her because she wants them to be suckers in the scheme that she's running.
In Massachusetts, the state says electric heat is the future and wants every home to switch off fossil fuels like oil and gas, replacing them with electric heat pumps like these. It's why Mass Save now only offers rebates for electric heat. Heating with electricity is supposed to help the state meet its climate goals, as a growing share of the region's electricity comes from renewable sources. But these homeowners say getting there is proving painfully expensive.
Now, again, another thing that pisses me off about the green agenda is that we could actually have efficient power, efficient energy that doesn't produce carbon dioxide, which is what they're the most worried about. But the thing is, in order to do that, all we would have to do is start building nuclear power plants, which is relatively easy to do in comparison to expecting wind and solar to somehow become more efficient, less dilute forms of energy.
And we've been having to play some defense, too.
The Healey administration has pushed its implementation to January 1st, 2028. The delay ensures the policy will not take effect until after the 2026 gubernatorial election and during the first full winter of Governor Maura Healey's second term.
Whether this is a political maneuver on Governor Healey's part, they're reticent about moving aggressively with some of these programs. I'm not sure what they're considering as an alternative. They are bound by statute to do this. There's no question about that. They've got to meet the requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act.
Now, even though nuclear energy works and it would actually lead to an increase in power output, thus an increase in the lifestyle and standard of living of the American people, as we would get more affordable, more abundant energy in a more efficient way, we end up seeing that these very same global warming groups that are so concerned about oil and coal end up being opposed to nuclear energy, because guess what? It is not a bug that this gives the government more control of your day-to-day life. That is actually the feature. Remember, we last talked about Massachusetts and how they were going to try to sneakily implement a driving tax that caps the amount of miles that everyday individuals can drive throughout the course of that state. And the reason they want to do this and not just raise the gas tax, which again technically does tax you for the amount that you actually drive by taxing you by the gallon of the fuel that you use to drive, is because they want more control over who is going where, and they want to use that money to basically make more public transit, again, something that they also control. This is about the authoritarian policy. Again, that's not the bug, that's the feature. That's why they never ask for people to build more nuclear power plants. In fact, they go out of their way to shut down nuclear power plants.
I think we're hearing more and more cases where people aren't realizing the savings they were expecting.
Babson Finance Professor Ryan Davies has worked on utility rates and agrees the state needs to bring down electricity costs to drive wider adoption of electric heat.
I think think everyone wants to help the environment, but when it comes at the end of the day, right, it's people's pocketbooks.
The Department of Public Utilities is exploring lower winter electric rates just for people who heat with electricity.
So they bring on some expert to talk about the cost of electric bills in the state of Massachusetts and how the state of Massachusetts needs to do something in order to cover the cost for average everyday residents. And the solution that is proposed is that if you actually switch over to one of these electric heat pumps, the amount of money you're going to spend per kilowatt hour is actually going to go down. So essentially, you're going to get a subsidized rate of electricity, and hopefully that will solve everybody's problem. But in reality, as we've seen time and time again, that solution is anything but a solution. It's just a subsidization of demand. And what happens when you subsidize demand is that people consume more. So what's ultimately end up going to happen is that will raise the cost of electricity for everybody else. And by the way, since more electricity will be consumed, that will also raise the cost of electricity for the people that are consuming it at this subsidized rate. It is such a dumb policy. It's so backwards. It's so insane. Again, as we see time and time again, they never propose the actual solution, which would be nuclear power, increasing energy capacity, increasing the amount of supply so that way you can meet the demand. Instead, they want to subsidize demand endlessly and then bitch and moan about why electricity is so expensive. Want to fix housing? We're not going to build any new housing. What we're going to do is give you tax credits, extra loans, subsidized demand on that side. Holy crap, lower interest rates. Let's add that in there. Wow, prices are going up. Who could have figured that would have happened? Education? You know what? We're not going to actually do anything about the cost of education other than make sure you could borrow more money, give you more Pell Grants, give you more state aid, and oh my shit, what's even happening? The cost of education is going up through the roof. How is this even possible that the thing that happens each and every time when we try this stupid ass solution happens each and every time? It's insane. It's ridiculous. And again, Governor Healey is an absolute coward because she doesn't want to face the music of actually implementing this policy because voters might reject it. But you, as a Massachusetts voter, do not need to be fooled by her nonsense. You need to expose it. You need to look her directly in the face, reject her at the ballot box, because make no mistake about it, you are going to be forced into this position. You are going to be forced to pay more for electricity, more for heating during the course of the winter, just so Governor Healey could say that she's meeting her climate goals and she's a wonderful, amazing green governor. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Massachusetts governor implementing a secret tax on heating your home. Till next time.